Hi, I'm Charles with AniCap. The story begins on a warship where two women frantically run from a group of armor-cladded men. As the soldiers block their path, the sturdy-built woman jumps to face them. With one quick strike with her sword, she eliminates the soldiers. Once the threat has been disposed of, Catalina assures the blue-haired woman next to her that they'll be fine. As they advance forward cautiously and carefully, a mocking voice of a man forces them to stop dead in their tracks. The man tauntingly tells Catalina that it's not fair for her to run away when they can finally test their research. He then pulls a mysterious jar with a glowing crystal inside of it. As he does that, the crest embedded on Lyria's chest starts emitting the same purple glow present in the crystal, which causes Lyria to wince in pain. When Lyria falls down due to the pain, Catalina rushes to her aid and angrily tells the man to stop. However, the man continues to mock Catalina further. Then suddenly, Lyria's eyes start glowing a shade of blue, causing the mysterious crystal in the jar to burst. This leads to a huge explosion which breaks apart the warship. Elsewhere, in a peaceful quiet island where everyone coexists in harmony, a young man by the name of Gran is seen cutting wood. He then tells his friend that he aspires to become a skyfarer one day and looks forward to putting his swordsmanship to a good purpose. A man and a talking dragon by the name of Vyrn enter together and greet Gran. As they're talking with each other, they suddenly notice a distant explosion in the sky. Then an uncanny light falls from the sky and into the forest. This sparks curiosity in Gran, so he decides to check out the situation for himself. With Vyrn by his side, Gran ventures deeper inside the forest to locate the mysterious light. Vyrn notes that despite the explosion, there's no fire or smoke, yet there's something odd about the forest. Just as Vyrn tells Gran to turn back, they come across the source of the light. Next to a tree lies Lyria, unconsciously with her crest glinting in the sunlight, creating the light that brought Gran to the forest. Once Lyria wakes from her unconscious state, she's startled by Gran's presence. To assure her that he means no harm, Gran backs up and apologizes for scaring her. After the misunderstanding has been cleared up, Vyrn asks Lyria for her whereabouts as he hasn't seen her around. This causes Lyria to look down in hesitance. Being the gentleman, Gran decides to introduce himself. When Lyria shifts her attention to Vyrn, she exclaims and calls him a talking lizard. Once they exchange introductions, Gran asks Lyria to tell him what happened. She starts by telling him that at first she was in a dark room for a long time and then Catalina rescued her. As Lyria is recalling all the events, she frantically asks Gran about Catalina's whereabouts. Since he's never heard of her, Gran asks Lyria what Catalina's like. After Lyria gives him a vague description of Catalina, Gran gets up and tells Lyria that together they'll find Catalina. As Gran lends a hand to Lyria, he warns her that there are monsters in the forest, and for the time being, they should return to the village. However, just as the words leave his mouth, the soldiers looking for Lyria come running towards them. As Gran puts the soldiers in their place, one of them manages to send a signal about Lyria's presence. As Lyria and Gran are running, Gran inquires about the soldiers. Lyria then tells Gran that they hail from the Erste Empire that has earned the reputation of being morally corrupt. When the lot find themselves encircled by the soldiers, Catalina makes a grand reappearance by slaying all the men at once. As they stop for a quick breather, Catalina introduces herself to Gran and Vyrn by informing them that she was once the lieutenant of the Empire. After Catalina informs Gran that they'll soon leave this place, Gran insists on assisting them. As the group resumes their journey, the man pursuing Lyria, known as Captain Palmer, blocks their path. He then summons a Hydra that manages to gravely wound Gran. Something wakes inside Lyria as she sees Gran fall to the ground. She transcends to Gran's subconsciousness and assures him that everything will be okay. As Palmer orders his soldiers to finish off everyone and take Lyria back to the Empire, Gran wakes up from the dead. He faces Lyria and asks her what happened to him as he feels different. The sky darkens as Lyria and Gran stand next to each other, emitting a bright light. Together, they raise their hands towards the sky to call upon a deity known as Bahamut. After a massive strike of light, a magnificent dragon appears in front of everyone. Lyria pleads to the dragon called Bahamut to save her. As the colossal Bahamut enters the scene, it makes Palmer's Hydra look like nothing but a joke. Lyria pleads to Bahamut to help her. With the magical crystal in his hand, Palmer commands the Hydra to advance forward and finish what he started. The restraints on Bahamut's mouth come undone as he loudly growls and flaps his gigantic wings in the sky. As the Hydra directs a fire attack on Bahamut, Palmer laughs menacingly, thinking that Bahamut is all talk and no show since he can't use his hands. However, the color on his face soon drains out when he witnesses Bahamut's overflowing energy. With one quick attack, Bahamut obliterates the Hydra. When the dust from the impact settles down, Palmer finds himself panicking as he now stands in a complete wasteland. He then decides to do the wise thing by scurrying back to the Empire with his soldiers. After Parmon's retreat, Catalina glances at Bahamut and notes to herself about the tremendous power Lyria holds. In the meantime, Gran asks Lyria about Bahamut. She informs him about how Bahamut helped them. With that, she touches the crest on her neck, which causes Bahamut to disappear inside the crystal embedded in the crest. Once Bahamut is gone, Gran finds himself fading into unconsciousness. In his unconscious state, Gran finds himself in the past when he was a young boy. On top of a green hill, young Gran reads a letter from his father. He tells Gran that he awaits his arrival in Estalucia, the island of the Astrals. Soon, Vyrn comes looking for him and Gran tells him about his father's experiences in Estalucia. Gran passionately mentions how he can't wait to be a Skyfarer and experience the adventures accounted by his father for himself. However, his daydreaming is rudely interrupted by his childhood friend, Erste, who tells him the island of the Astrals is nothing more than a myth. As the two boys get into a tussle, Erste's father enters the scene and breaks the fight. After lightly reprimanding the boys, Erste's father politely tells Gran to take it easy. He tells him that he entrusts him to become a Skyfarer and an opportunity will soon present itself, but until then, he advises Gran to take it slow. When Gran opens his eyes, he finds himself in his bed with the worried Lyria, who greets him upon seeing him unconscious. As Lyria examines his body for injuries, Gran blushes and falls out of the bed. Soon, Vyrn makes an appearance and starts hitting Gran for making him worry. Catalina shortly joins the lot and informs Gran that the imperial soldiers have retreated, and no one was harmed except for him. She then hesitantly tells Gran that he had died. Vyrn quickly intervenes and says that he saw for himself that Lyria magically healed him, but Catalina tells him that magic can't resurrect the dead. As Gran sits down for Catalina to explain the situation, Catalina begins to tell him that the Empire has been researching the power of primal crystals, and Lyria happens to be that piece of puzzle that brings everything together. Lyria contains the power of primal crystals, which helps her control primal beasts from the island of the Astrals. Vyrn interjects and asks if Lyria is one of the legendary Astrals that control beasts, but Catalina debunks that as Astrals disappeared a long time ago, and since Lyria lost her memories, she doesn't know what she is. Lyria then tells Gran that she merged her life force with him, which means they're two bodies and one soul. Because of this, Gran and Lyria can't be separated. Therefore, if Gran intends to live, he must follow Lyria and Catalina to the island of the Astrals. Once Lyria and Catalina inform Gran of the stakes, they apologize to him, but Gran quickly assures them that he's grateful that Lyria extended her help, so he'll gladly join them in their expedition. Later, when the group returns to the village, they're welcomed to a grand feast organized by the villagers. There, Gran announces that he'll be leaving with Lyria and Catalina, however he's met with Erste's disapproval. Erste interjects and tries to rationalize with Gran, but his father tells him to stop as this has always been Gran's lifelong dream. When Erste realizes that his father is in the right, he glumly asks Gran if he will return to the village again. Gran promises to Erste that he'll return soon. Thanks to the loud rumbling of Lyria's stomach, everyone breaks out in laughter. Soon enough, the villagers along with Lyria and Catalina decide to discard their worries by feasting upon the meal prepared for them. The next day, Erste and his father have come to see off Vyrn, Gran, Lyria, and Catalina. As Catalina tries to kickstart her airship, they're off to a rocky start, but soon they find themselves safely flying in the sky. Looking down from the airship, Gran notes just how small their island looks from above. Later, the sound of an alarm goes off, indicating that something has terribly gone wrong inside the airship. The airship then makes an unplanned stop at the aerial island of Angana. As Catalina, Gran, and Lyria are recovering from the abrupt landing, a man comes to inspect the wrecked airship. He asks various questions regarding the accident, but when he's answered by silence, he says to himself that this airship might never see the sky again. Then he grumpily inquires about the helmsman. When Catalina hums in response, he asks questions regarding the temperature and power load. When Catalina hesitates to reply to him, the man realizes that she doesn't know how to really fly the airship. After the man reprimands Catalina for ruining a perfect airship, he leaves the lot to deal with his business. Then, Vyrn makes a suggestion to find a place to rest. An airship carrying cargo on the island catches their attention and the group decides to head in the same direction. Once they make it to the town, Lyria expresses her amazement when she sees people in airships. Catalina then tells her that this place serves as a hub for island-to-island travel. It is said that here, business is always booming, as people come to Angana for trade. Gran asks if they can get an airship, but Catalina tells them that it's beyond their means for now. However, they can resume their journey through passenger ships. Catalina also informs the group that they'll be safe in the island for a while, as Angana is refusing to obey the Empire's rule, which means that the military can't act out publicly. After they rent out a motel for their stay, Catalina finds a cat and loses her composure. Upon noticing Gran's expression, Lyria tells him that Catalina is very fond of cute things. Once she's done with the cat, Catalina chases after Vyrn to pet him. The next day, when Catalina goes to buy tickets for their travel, she's flabbergasted to learn that there aren't any passenger flights. As she annoyedly asks for the next flight, the woman informs her that she's not sure herself, and puts them on the waiting list. When Gran notices a grand airship, he goes to check it out. He exclaims when he sees just how big the airship is. The man they first met on the island greets them, and compliments Gran for his taste. As he's telling Gran about the logistics of the ship, Vyrn notes that he knows a lot about ships. The man introduces himself as Rackham and takes the group to show them their broken airship. Just then, a man and woman dressed eccentrically greet Gran and Lyria. The man called Drang says they have an extra airship that he can give them. To sweeten the offer further, he throws in some treats too. While Vyrn eagerly tries to take the treats, Lyria tells him to stay put because Catalina warned them about stranger danger. Upon hearing Catalina's name, Drang accidentally gives himself up. His partner, Strum, darkly warns the group to leave the island or there will be consequences. Once Gran, Lyria, and Vyrn are trapped, Gran raises his sword to fend off the attacks orchestrated by Drang. Luckily, Rackham finds the lot and leads them through an underground passage which leads back to the port where they reunite with Catalina. After Rackham leaves the group, they discuss their next move in a diner. A talking parrot and a dwarf girl called Sierra greet them and make an offer of a used ship. Catalina tells Lyria that the reason for Sierra's small stature is because she's a Harvan, people that stay short as adults. As Catalina reveals her troubles to Sierra tells her that it'll be hard finding a helmsman, especially when they're cash-strapped. Next to their table, a group of men pick up their conversation and tell them about Rackham, who happens to be a helmsman that spends his time working on a broken airship. Later, Gran and Lyria insist that Catalina ask Rackham to be their helmsman. As the group make their way to see Rackham, they find themselves facing a magnificent airship. In Rackham's absence, the group commends him for his work. Suddenly, soldiers from the Empire make an entrance, causing Gran and friends to quickly take cover. Under the captaincy of an insufferable short man called Furious, the soldiers oversee the island. When a soldier tells Furious that his decision to destroy the entire island is a bit extreme, he ends up killing one of his own men. When Lyria, Gran, and Catalina witness the murder, they gasp in horror. This diverts Captain Furious' attention, and he orders his soldiers to check out the source of the noise. A fire attack directed towards their hiding spot forces Catalina, Lyria, and Gran to show themselves. When Captain Furious sees Catalina, he mockingly calls her by her old title, and then averts his gaze towards Lyria and calls her a fugitive. As he orders his men to capture everyone, Rackham launches a surprise attack on Furious. Rackham then soon finds himself riding the love of his life, a ship called Gran Cipher. Gran Cipher happens to be a disobedient ship since she refuses to fly. As Rackham is trying to maneuver her, he frantically wakes up from the dream. From his safe house, he notices a commotion next to his beloved Gran Cipher. On the other hand, Captain Furious taunts Catalina for running away in a broke-down ship. He then praises himself and hints that it was because of him that people are unable to leave the island. When he confirms Catalina's doubts, Captain Furious reveals that once he got the permission to demolish the island, he took extra measures to ensure that no one gets to escape. He then laughs like a maniac and tells Catalina that it's too late for her to do anything. Just as he orders his soldiers to capture them, an unexpected gunshot breaks his chair, causing Furious to tumble down the hill. Then the series of gunshots cause the soldiers to scatter away. When a gunshot lands right next to Gran, he notices an underground passageway. After calling Catalina, Lyria, and Vyrn, the group descend into the passageway. As they're walking, they see the path in front of them light up. This sends Catalina on edge, but Gran assures her that it's alright. From ahead comes their savior, Rackham. When Gran greets him, he tells Rackham that he had a feeling that it was him that saved their lives. Rackham then leads the group to his safe house where they notice various drawings and tools related to ships. He then asks the group what they were doing outside. His question makes everyone look at each other nervously, so Rackham assures them that he's not interested in their business, but just wants to know what they were doing next to his ship. Gran replies that they were looking for him as they heard he was once a helmsman. After hearing Gran, Rackham immediately refuses to become their helmsman and tells the group that he doesn't want to fly unless it's with Gran Cipher. He goes into telling the group that since he was a kid, it was his childhood dream to fix up Gran Cipher and get her flying in the air. As he grew up into a young man, he collected parts for her and worked relentlessly on Gran Cipher. When he finally managed to get her in the air, they ran into a rare gust of wind and crashed. Since then, Gran Cipher has refused to budge. To sum it up, Rackham uses an old saying used by Skyfarers that his ship just doesn't believe in him. He pats Gran on the back and says to him that he can teach him how to fly. After Gran expresses his gratitude, Catalina notes that the soldiers have withdrawn for now, but since Furious claimed to demolish the island, they must warn the civilians. As the group is leaving to inform the people, Rackham decides to join them. Meanwhile, Captain Furious reprimands his soldiers for not saving him from the fall and letting the girls go. When he calms down, he cryptically asks if everything is prepared. After his soldiers give him an affirmation, he laughs menacingly. On the other hand, as the group advances towards the island, they're hit by a strong gust of wind. Vyrn expresses his doubts about the soldiers to Catalina, who tells him that she once heard that the Empire had a weapon that can decimate the entire island. Just then, Strum and Drang block their pathway. Catalina immediately gets informed and questions the duo about their plans. When they refuse to answer and things escalate, Strum takes out her sword while Drang brings his own weapons to play. As the fight commences, the skies grow darker and darker. The cheerful assassin makes one last attempt to get the group on board, but once they refuse, Drang sarcastically bids them good luck and runs away. As Drang leaves, the group tries to connect 2 and 2 and realize that the terrible weather is related to Furious's evil plan. In the city, strong winds have caused the civilians to take sanctuary inside a sturdy building. When the group sees everyone in such a terrible condition, they're filled with sadness. Then a number of tornadoes at play wreak havoc upon the people. During this trying time, Rackham lets go of his desire to ride Gran Cipher and steps up to transport women and kids to safety. Just as they reach the port, Furious destroys the last airship remaining. He then announces to the people that there's a wind goddess residing in the island, but her true identity is of a primal beast called Tiamat. As Furious continues to laugh maliciously, Lyria asks Rackham to get her close to Tiamat. Rackham then leads the group to Gran Cipher, their last hope. Vyrn expresses his concern regarding the ship, but Rackham believes that Gran Cipher knew that this day would come, and she's finally ready to fly in the air. His faith in Gran Cipher proves to be legit as the ship proudly takes flight. Gran smiles and asks Rackham to get them closer to Tiamat, the wind goddess. Rackham assures Gran to leave everything to him as he proudly maneuvers Gran Cipher in the air. Thanks for watching part 1. Future parts will be in a pinned comment below.